Good afternoon, and welcome to our series, Interviews with Disciples and Devotees. Today again we are honored to have Kittu Reddy, Namaste Kittu, and on the ideal of human unity, first chapter.
Towards the end of the first chapter.
Yes, and you'll give an overview.
I'll give an overview of the first chapter and
Very
then
good.
move on to the second.
Okay.
Now, the main ideas of the first chapter are, first of all, that nature has thrown forward the idea of human unity. And whether we like it or not, whether we cooperate or not, nature will ultimately move towards the culmination of human unity by any means, sometimes violent means, which is exemplified by the First World War followed by the League of Nations, the Second World War followed by the United Nations. Do we need a Third World War, or shall we wake up? And this tendency towards world unity is very strongly being pushed forward by science because of the technology, the interdependence, etc., etc. So we are tending to come closer and closer to each other. But then, because it is being done through science, and mainly through science, the tendency or the inevitable line of bringing about unity will be by the power of reason, which means create a system. A system means a machinery. So we will create a machinery, and Sri Aurobindo says very clearly that if the heart is not ready, the machinery will inevitably collapse. Or you replace it by another machinery, till we realize that it has to be on a deeper plane. Now, if we try to do it by physical means, we will create a gigantic organization. And history has shown us, the past history of mankind, that life has been rich, productive, and creative only when it is lived mainly in small spaces. So he says modern Europe owes 2/3 of its civilization to three such movements. One was the vivid life of the ancient city-states of Greece. Another was the vivid and intense religious life of Judea, what is now called Israel. And the third one is the intense city-state life of the Renaissance in Italy in the 16th century. So he says Europe owes 2/3 of its civilization to these three movements. But we will tend to create an external. The result is that there will be security, there will be peace, there will be order, but ultimately the individual will not grow. And ultimately, at the beginning, people will be happy that we are getting everything that we need. Security is there, peace is there. But ultimately, man's individuality will not be satisfied with the security and peace. It wants to express itself. And that will tend to be suppressed when you have a vast organization. So he says that the Roman Empire is the perfect example of the advantages and disadvantages of this vast organization. He says the advantages are admirable organization, peace, widespread security, order, and material well-being. The disadvantage is that the individual, the city, the region, sacrifice their independent life and become mechanical parts of a machine. Life loses its color, richness, variety, freedom, and victorious impulse towards creation. So the organization is great, but because you have created a mechanical structure, the individual decays. And after some time, the society will die from inside. Because if there is no more creation, no more joy of life, and that is the main reason why Sri Aurobindo says the Roman Empire collapsed. It is not generally thought, they always think that it was the barbarians who came from Germany, the Teutons, the Huns, the Franks, the Goths, that resulted in the collapse of the Roman Empire. But then the question should come, an empire which has lasted so long, which has such tremendous military resources and experience, is knocked out by barbarians who have nothing else but energy. So evidently, that is not the main reason. The main reason is that, like a fruit rotting from inside, the Roman Empire rotted from inside. Because they didn't fight for a cause. They fought because they had to fight. And when you fight like that, your heart is not there. The result is they collapsed. As Sri Aurobindo says, that it was an inevitable step in the process of nature, because everything became too mechanical. Then there was a period of which is known as the Dark Ages, but then life began to revive itself. And then from the 12th century onwards, there was a movement forward, and ultimately in the 16th, 15th century, individual groups began to form into nations. So that is why England and France were the first. Spain and Portugal followed very soon. And then nations formed, living real unit, tremendous life. And because England, such a tiny little nation, had such a tremendous strong inner life, which ultimately developed into the material field, they conquered the whole world. Within 1 century or 2 centuries, the whole world was at their feet. Right? The sun never set on the British Empire. Yeah. So the main idea is this, that while world unity has to come and will come, we have to find out a means by which there will be unity respecting individuality. So that is a delicate balance which the leaders of the world today have to keep in mind all the time. And today it is very difficult to suppress individualism and nationalism. I don't think any nation in the world will accept a world state. So you have to find a way by which we all come together, and yet there is a lot of respect for individual freedom, which also demands that the individual nations have to be very responsible in their behavior. And today there is a threat in North Korea. It is a little frightening sometimes, but then when one starts reading Sri Aurobindo, one says that, look, if there is a destruction in the next few months, it was an inevitable necessity for the world union. So we have to suffer.
Kittu, what about India during all these ages?
India going through?
India and small states and small...
I think India is an excellent example. See, today we have got 28 states in India. I am leaving aside Pakistan and Bangladesh and Bhutan and Nepal. If they join, which will inevitably happen, then we'll have about probably 50 or 60 states. And I am saying that it will inevitably happen. It is both for political study of Sri Aurobindo and confirmation from the mother.
Yes.
I got it in writing. I had this discussion with a senior teacher of the higher course that Pakistan is bound to go. And if Pakistan goes, then Bangladesh, Nepal, they will automatically come in. That is its own. And I told this teacher that I believe that if you read Sri Aurobindo well, you will arrive at the same conclusion, even if you are not a Bhakt, a devotee. He said, no, only Sri Aurobindo who reads the Supermind can say this. So I wrote to mother. So mother answered, you might call it very diplomatically. She answered in French. I've still got the letter. I've sent it to Narendra Modi. The disappearance of Pakistan is inevitable. It could have come earlier, but human ignorance has delayed it. Now, is human ignorance mean that you and me and Narendra Modi should be in touch with the supermind? Then there is no chance at all. But I believe that it is by human ignorance. She is using ignorance in the deeper sense, not normal sense, deeper sense, but not that expectation.
Yes.
So now the problem is, how do we bring about this unity between all the nations, at the same time respecting their individualism? And we have to do it because nature is demanding it. And I hope North Korea becomes responsible. And if it happens, then things will be smooth and peaceful. If it doesn't happen, then like First World War, League of Nations, Second World War, United Nations, third, God knows what, a tighter organization. I mean, a more effective organization.
Well, certainly the United Nations is not very effective.
As of now, the United Nations is not very effective. And I'll give you a little political statement. India has been long asking, from 1994 I think, that the Security Council must be expanded. At that time, America and others said point blank no. Now America has agreed to the expansion, 12 or 13 states. But the veto power will be only with 5 of us. India has said no, we don't agree to that. All members of the Security Council should have the veto power. Might be we can modify that, not one veto power, but say 2 or 3 giving the veto power. So that is where the point is, and that is exactly where now Trump is having to deal. And as at present, today itself, the Foreign Secretary of the United States, Tillerson, he met India's Foreign Minister, and very good understanding, strategic understanding. Now this might lead to the next step forward, because Indo-American cooperation is very, very important for the future of the world. Because India will supply the spiritual element, America will supply the material element. So the two together, matter and spirituality, material development and spiritual development, will be excellent for the world.
And Mother has said this clearly.
Mother has said this very clearly, that it will happen. India and America will come together. She said this in 1971, after the Bangladesh war, when America took a violently aggressive anti-Indian position. when Nixon sent the 7th Fleet right into the Bay of Bengal. Luckily, they withdrew, right? But today, America has now moved very closely, and as I said, today itself, Tillerson is in New Delhi talking to Sushma Swaraj and categorical warning to Pakistan
Yes.
that any
Yes.
harboring of terrorists or terrorism on your part will receive a very severe reaction from America and India. So the world is moving, in spite of everything, it is moving. So I'll take up the next chapter. He says mainly that the whole process of nature depends on the balancing of apparently opposite forces.
Sorry. We can edit that out.
Huh?
We will edit that out.
Yeah.
Okay.
So on apparently opposite forces. And coming to the point straight, two forces which are apparently opposite but which need to be balanced are individualism and collectivism. So individual has to be allowed to grow, whether as an individual or as a nation. And the collectivity has also to be there, whether as an institution or the world unity. So individualism and collectivism have to be balanced. But here he brings in two problems that we have to face. Because he says the gradual process of nature introduces a complication which prevents the individual from standing in a pure and direct relation to the totality of mankind. I'll explain. We as individuals, we are first part of a small collectivity called the family. Then as we grow up, it is probably our classmates. Then it is our institution. Then might be the province or the district. And then it is the nation. So it's a very gradual process. And the interesting thing is that in you and all individuals, we are often part of all of these at the same time. You are attached to your family, you are attached to your state, you are attached to your nation, which means that there can be a conflict. Is Gujarat more important for me or India more important? Is my family more important or Gujarat more important? So this is a very peculiar problem, and this is a political problem. Because as Narendra Modi has been saying, and I believe he means it, India first, India always, India last. Sabka saath, sabka vikas. No up and down. You know what it means, sabka saath, sabka vikas. Development for all, and we are with all. So there is no classification of region, of caste, or anything. Now this is a very nice ideal. Whether it is implementing or not is not a question that I am going to discuss. So continually this problem is coming. The smaller unit versus the bigger unit. And this is a very serious political problem. So now in December you are going to have elections in Gujarat. And already you can see it manifesting. Gujarat first or India first. So I don't want to give names and political things, but the ordinary Gujarati who is going to vote has to start thinking, what is more important for me, Gujarat first or India first? Correct? So this is a very major political problem. And this is nation first or world first. Right? In the world's interest, it is very desirable that all of us give up our nuclear arm weapons. But I don't trust anybody, so nobody will give up. So you see, this is a very major problem. So this is a political problem which has to be solved. And we are facing it at every step. This you edit, I'm telling now. In Bengal, Mamata Banerjee is almost all the time saying Bengalis, 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 even at the cost of India. Fortunately, the Bengalis themselves are very proud of their own culture, but many are now beginning to realize that we cannot be out of India. We must be part of India. So India first, Bengal second. India first, Tamil Nadu second. So this is a very serious political problem. And it is happening all over the world. In Spain now. Is Spanish unity important or Catalonia must become independent? In Iran or Iraq, the Kurds, can they have a separate state or should they be part of the larger group? So this needs enormous delicate handling. And if you are not successful in this, well, instability can be predicted. I think that the present Indian situation is not bad at all. That we have managed to keep almost all, with some minor problems here and there. Kashmir is a problem, but that problem is mainly because of Pakistan. Otherwise, it would have been much less. So, this is the first problem that has to be tackled. Now, Shrivindu says, even if this were done, there is one more problem that will come up, right? So, even when the nation is sufficiently organized, entire unity is not always achieved. There are other elements of discord, which he says comes from this, that in a society, even as big as a nation, individuals and groups do not progress at the same rate. Some advance faster, some advance slower, some even don't advance, they retrogress. Inevitably, as a consequence of this, there is a tendency to have a dominant class. So there will be a dominant group. It is very evident today in the whole world. The wealthier, the more capable, the more talented, they are dominating over the inferior class. But nature will not allow this. It is impossible to have equality of capacity in the world. There will always be some who are more capable and some who are less capable. But what the more capable, the more gifted, the more progressive have to do is to pass on those qualities to those who are below, and then gradually raise them up. So, as he says, but this phenomenon, whether of dominant class or dominant nations, can never be more than a temporary necessity. For the final aim of nature and human life cannot be the exploitation of the many by the few, or even of the few by the many, can never be the perfection of some at the cost of the abject submergence and ignorant subjection of the bulk of humanity. These are only transitory devices. Now see, he has used two words. the domination of the majority, of the minority over the majority, the talented, the capable, or the domination of the majority over the rest. Now, might be this could be illustrated. Britain voted a few months back or a year back whether they should remain in the European Union. And what was the vote? 50.6, 49.4. It is hardly a majority, right? Now they have moved out, but there are lots of problems. So here it is the domination of the majority over the minority, and a very thin minority. You get it? So, domination of the few over the many, or of the many over the few, is not desirable. Because nature wants to bring about an equality among all people and ultimately among all nations. But then there is equality and equality. So Sri Aurobindo says absolute equality is impossible, neither desirable nor possible. But a fundamental equality is imperative for the future growth. What is this thing called fundamental equality? So, fundamental equality may be defined as giving all human beings the basic needs of life: food, clothing, housing, medication, etc., that you have to work out what are the basic needs that everybody must have in life, and the equal opportunity to use his talents and his capacities to rise as far as he can. So somebody can be an excellent cricketer, but hopeless probably in something else. Doesn't matter. Give him the opportunity to go up there, and give this person the opportunity to go in his line according to his nature up there. Then there will be satisfaction, because everybody doesn't aspire to be a Don Bradman or a Virat Kohli. They would like to become somebody else. It all depends on your nature.
Socialism and communism have both tried this and failed.
Both socialism and communism, this is their goal. This is their ultimate goal. But unfortunately, the method that they have used, especially communism, is suppression of the individual. Socialism is a kind of modified, but even then there is a tendency to suppress the individual, but not as much as. So what they are now doing nowadays all over the world is to make a marriage between democracy and socialism. So it is called either democratic socialism. I think America is a very good example of that, because America has become socialistic. I mean, unemployed are given money. Formerly they said it is competition is your problem. In England they very clearly give you doles if you are not employed. And the democratic socialism. And the other one is socialistic democracy, where the stress is more on the collectivity and a little less on the individual.
And we covered this in the human cycle.
Yeah, it comes
Yes.
in that chapter of the curve of the rational age and all that.
Right.
So this is exactly the balance that we are trying. So two things that a society must have. That if your society has to thrive and grow, and since you belong to many levels of society, the most important is the biggest one. You must be ready to sacrifice the smaller one for the bigger one. I think I gave you this example. A family has only one son. He wants to join the army. And the parents say, look, only one son. Army is a very risky affair. He says, no, for me, nation is more important than family. For them, family is more important than nation. It's a very simple example, but this is taking place at all levels. And so you have to bring about a harmony in which the biggest entity will be more important than any other entity. So when you want to bring world unity, the world is more important than the nation. You have to be ready to sacrifice some of your national interests for the good of the world. You can take your time, you can see whether it is really beneficial or not. This is the first thing. And the second thing is that a fundamental equality to all groups has to be developed, by which all of them will be given all the basic needs of life and the opportunity to grow according to their dharma, according to their swadharma as it is called. So if these two conditions are fulfilled, then the chances of world unity are much greater. That's it.
Good.
If you have any question, you can ask. Clear?
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you, Kittu.